Hello YouTube, today at Power Jack Repair. This is ignore this website because this is for regular connector repairs. This is for USB-C repair, usbcrepair.com. Now the usbcrepair.com we had to shut down a few times over the last several years because about 50% of all of those USB-C connectors are not fixable, and I would like to describe to you why they're not fixable. And this one turned out to be just fine. So this is the old connector right here. I will show it to you under the microscope, and it got desoldered just fine. And that's a brand new connector right there, which I just soldered in, and I just tested it. And I need to remove all of the alcohol right now so it will just dry up a little bit faster, so I would show you that everything is connected. Now the pricing above right here is not for USB-C connector repairs, it's for regular jacks. Basically a jack that has just a plus and a minus. This guy has 24 legs in the back. It got two rows, one right here, 12 pins in the back, and this one another 12 pins in the back right here. So again, I'll show it to you under the microscope in a second. So the reason why this business did not take off, this one USB-C repair, is simple. When a client starts to wiggle the connector up and down, basically in a motion like that, up and down, again, you can watch on our website for more images of what I mean. When you wiggle it up-down motion, the rear pins, the rear 12 pins here and 12 pins right there, they usually come off together with the part of the motherboard. So when you push it this way, the rear raises and the pins are taking out the traces on the motherboard. There are 24 traces in the back, so 12 right here and 12 under the jack right here. So once those traces are coming off the motherboard, so if you can see the traces in the back of the connector coming off the motherboard, you can pretty much don't even bother sending it to us, because is it fixable? Yes, but it's gonna take 1, 2, 3 days to fix it. And unfortunately, I just don't have time, because this business has been around for 20 something plus years, 25 years by now. And we've been charging a flat rate fee for regular jack repairs. But now we are swamped with the USB Type-C connectors, and they take a lot more time to work on. And the problem is, once you have all of those traces coming off the motherboard, I mean, if 1 or 2 traces are damaged, I could probably fix it at no extra charge, so to speak. Again, all of the prices for the repair are flat rate. It's not like you're gonna send it to us and we're gonna call you, or you know what, is gonna be more expensive. We just don't have time to call anybody. We don't have time to take your credit card over the phone. We just keep working on those day in and day out. So the reason I'm making this video is that we made a video about 2 or 3 years ago, probably, how we do those kind of repairs. And what we mentioned in the video is that there is the inner... I figured I would just switch to the microscope view. So basically the situation is this. This is the jack, right? We got 12 pins right here and we got 12 pins right there. And from a couple of years ago, I would show you that we can solder the 12 pins in the back right here, but we were unable to solder these 12 pins because they're sitting on top of the motherboard, and there is no way for us to get there with the soldering iron like that. So I mean, we will just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 right here in the back, and that way the laptop would work 50% of the time once we would do that, because the plug itself has a top side and a bottom side. So it depends on which way you plug it in, it would work 50% of the time. If you plug it in with the up part facing up, it would work. If you plug it in with the down side facing downwards, it would work. But if you flip it over, it wouldn't work. So let me just explain it a bit better. All right, so this is the plug, right? When you plug it in like that, it would work if you would just solder the rear 12 pins. if you would flip it over and plug it in like that, it would not work because the inner 12 pins, as you can see right here, they're not reachable. I mean, you can't solder anything here. So, and that's what we've been advertising to our clients, is that, you know, if you send this model to us, only it's gonna work 50% of the time when it's plugged in with the up facing up. So up, plug it in, it would work. Flip it over, it wouldn't work. Now, the situation has changed a bit because now we got more time. Now we got more time to work on those laptops, and we invested thousands of dollars just so that we would be able to solder the inner row of pins. Let me show you which inner row of pins I'm talking about. So we invested some money to do this row of pins, and that's how it looks in 3D right here, you see? So we were able to solder the rear just fine, but the inner ones usually were unsolderable. But with the investments we made for just to do USB Type-C repairs, again, that's all we do here at the Power Jack Repair. We do just connectors for all the laptops make and models. We got all of them. Now, when it comes to USB Type-C connectors, we don't really have all of them in stock. But in general, I mean, if it's been already 2 or 3 years since those laptops came out, we could usually source the connector, and that's how it looks from the top. You see, there is no way to access the inner row of pins. And now, the secret sauce is that what we do is we pre-tin this area right here with the small iron. All right, so that's a technique I copied from one of the colleagues on the West Coast. We would pre-tin it with the solder here. We would pre-tin this with the solder. We would pre-tin the motherboard. And then what we would do is using the hot air, but not the hot air regular one, like the ones we had before. This one, you see, this huge tip. If you would be using this, all the plastic right here would just melt, and it sometimes still melts, as you can see. You see right there, there's some melting right there. But instead of using the hot air gun that we usually use, we used the hot air torch. A hot air torch is like $1,000 investment, a high quality torch, where we can, instead of blowing the air and temperature all over the place, what we would do is we would insulate those components right here so they wouldn't fly away, and we would put a torch right here and just would go with the torch right. Oh, torch is loose. All right, so I would just go like that, and the hot air would blow inside of the underneath the jack, and it would activate the solder, and solder would melt, and this guy would just sit in place between the top and the bottom. So using this tiny torch and proper temperature, I'm able to basically not damage this plastic connection, because the plastic connection melts right away as soon as you put a bigger torch, because bigger torch like that, you can't have a really minimal airflow. There's a lot of air flowing through it, and once the air starts flowing, everything starts to melt. So another thing is, what we do is we usually just blow hot air right here in the back, right here in between the, here, let me show you, in between the jack and the board. You see the pins right there? So those pins are sitting on top of the motherboard, and if I'm blowing this fine torch here on the top, like that, I'm usually able to heat up the board from the bottom and heat up the pins right there, and then tins are pre-tinned, the board has tin on it, and the solder kicks in together, and I'm able to solder this guy up. Now, as you can see from this image, we're still in the process of fine-tuning everything here, because the temperatures needs to be set, the distance needs to be set, and you see this jack got melted right here a little bit because I over torched it just a tiny bit. But when I see this starting to melt here, that means it's gonna melt on the inside in a second. So that's when you have to kind of stop doing what you're doing. So, and another thing is you see those little tiny small guys right here. Even though it had an insulation right here, this guy got disconnected and there is no way to solder it back. This is probably for the data signal, probably. Even though this seems like this is the positive trace. And so one of those was right here and it's got flown away, even though I was blowing it with the torch on the small air. But yeah, the thing is, nowadays it is possible to solder the inner row of pins and to make this guy work. And I will show you in a second that it does work. And then I will just solder those guys here and that guy right there. This one is kind of solders between here and here. So, and you see there is no damage to the pins because when you use the big hot air nozzles like that or any of the standard hot nozzles, everything starts to fly off the motherboard, everything starts to melt, and it's really hard to get the good job done here. So again, usbcrepair.com, we can solder the second row nowadays, this second row of pins right here. So this second row can be soldered nowadays. All right, so this is 2022. Now we can solder it, no problem at all. Some melting gonna be on the connector, but again, we're gonna play around with the temperatures. And I just want to update that we are back in business of USB Type-C repairs, and that this is successfully can be soldered, desoldered. All the pricing gonna vary on the website, depends on how busy we are, and sometimes we're gonna suspend the operation as well, because if we get like a couple dozen of those in the mail, we can't really handle them, because you have to be looking at the microscope all day, and sometimes you get just a lot of headache from working with this guy. Yeah, so let me show you that everything does work on the new motherboard, or on the new jack with the old motherboard. Alrighty, let me show you that it does work under a different, where is the tester? Here we got this tester, and we're gonna plug it in right here, right? And then we're gonna plug it in right here. And we get 19.95 volts and 0.64 amps this way. We can unplug this guy, rotate the plug around, plug it back in, and again the light on the board comes up, and we got 19.96 volts, 0.6534 whatever amps. And that means everything is gonna work just fine. Again, we've seen a whole bunch of solutions, we tried a whole bunch of solutions, and yeah, sometimes it's possible just to keep the board heated up and drop the new jack onto the heated board. But again, we tried every single solution, and it seems like the method I described to you works the best for us. Anyways, just subscribe to the channel. I will upload a new video of how I'm doing this kind of repair. But this is just a sum up for the usbcrepair.com, so that people would understand that if you take the laptop apart and you send it the motherboard, it's going to be much cheaper. And you could see for yourself right there in the back, you can make sure that the traces haven't separated from the motherboard. A separated trace from the motherboard pictures you could find on USB-C repair, so you could see that if the pad is already on the pin or not. But in this case, the fault was with the inside of the connector, not so much the connection in the back. All right. All right. One other thing I forgot to mention is this: when you wiggle it to the point where it's no longer powers up from the charging cord, that usually means the board usually goes bad, and that's one of the reasons we can't fix those many of those Lenovo laptops, simply because yeah, initially the jack is bad, and you wiggle it, and due to constant power interruptions, the board goes bad, and we can't figure out which IC chips to replace, because we don't really have any diagrams for it. It's all proprietary, and so that's another reason why we can't fix many of those ThinkPads. So one of the reasons is the too many pads get broken off the motherboard. If it's one or two, you can usually fix it. If it's the whole 12 row pin on the outside, 12 rows on the inside, we're usually not gonna even fix it because it's gonna take 2-3 days to fix it properly. It could take 5-6 hours to fix it improperly. But if you're gonna fix it improperly, how can you charge somebody money? So in this particular case, the jack was broken here, not on the inside where it came off the motherboard, but it was on the inside. The pins were touching each other. So now is the moment of truth, and we soldered it so that it would work like that. It would work like that, and yeah. So again, two ways how the laptop not gonna work is: one is the pads are broken, all of them, many of them, or two, the IC chips go bad and there is nobody. We could still solder the new jack in place, but the IC chips are bad. So that happens all the time. So that's the reason why the whole business model for USB-C repair doesn't really work well yet. But we are trying to, get some traction. So let's plug it in. It's a nice and solid connection. We got the orange light. We just had an orange light right there. I'm not sure why it went away. Strange. Is it cycling? Is it powering up? What's going on? Let's see. We got a white light right here. We don't have anything on the screen yet. But, oh yeah, we got Lenovo on the screen. Good job. Okay, it says check date and time. Because we disconnected the battery, the date and time has changed. And I don't want to show you the client information. If it's gonna show up. Again, check date and time settings right there because we disconnected the CMOS battery. Again, if you get the motherboard back, if you sent us just the motherboard, for example, you press F1 and you go into the date and time settings and you change it to, today is what, 7/16 2022, and the time is yeah, so it took me all day to get it done properly, so that's gonna be 3. All right, so how do I change? All right, so like that. So we change it. So it's only one way it goes. All right, so it's gonna be 15. 15:31. Alrighty. And I hope everything's gonna power up. But yeah, guys, again, just wanted to show you that all of the USB Type-Cs are replaceable and could be soldered. The inner row could be soldered. And this is the first proof. I mean, I've done a whole bunch of those with different ways before, but I wasn't happy with the work. But with this one, connected IC adapter has lower wattage than the recommended AC adapter, which was shipped with the system. To use the AC adapter, please use the AC adapter which was shipped with the system. All right, so the adapter I connected is my adapter because the client didn't send the... Oh, okay, that's not even the adapter. Okay, never mind. You know what? Let me get the power supply. Already, I apologize for that. I got the OEM Lenovo adapter in the stack here. We're gonna connect the OEM Lenovo adapter to the connection there. Is it on? Hopefully it's on. All right, and now we got the orange light. Yeah, okay, so it's just the wrong adapter was connected. I just have a whole bunch of USB cables here. Go figure which one goes where. Anyways, so this is 60 watt, 65 watt Lenovo adapter, which probably, so let's restart it. Let's see if it's gonna complain again. Probably not gonna complain because now the proper adapter is connected, so everything should be fine. And the orange light stays on still. So that's a good. And you see it didn't complain. Right there we see that it is it is charging right there and plugged in and charging. All right. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip the cord over. So we're gonna disconnect the cord, flip it over. All right. Plug it in again. And we get the charge light again. So yeah. Alrighty. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like. Again, this is only for our business. Again, just wanted to show you that the 6th generation Lenovo could be working just fine. Now, the second connection I can't really do much about at this time, but this connection I finally sorted out how to make the inner row of pins being soldered to the motherboard and work fine. Again, both ways it does work here. Let me show you on this side. So now we got the light right here. We unplug it, turn it over, plug it back in, and we see we got the light again. So and the system works fine too. All right, let's see, touchpad works. This touchpad works as well. Just want to make sure that the laptop powers up and works. All right. I don't need your pins. I don't need the passwords. Let's see, the wireless works. Yeah, the wireless works fine. All right, so shut down. Guys, it's a big breakthrough for this business. Hopefully I'm gonna get some business. But again, if you're sending just the motherboard, take a look at the rear pins. If they taken out the board already, you will see some orange stuff on the pins. That means there is no need to send it this way. If it's situation like the one here where people just broke the inside of the jack, then that's a good candidate that everything's gonna work fine. All right, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.